You can go through page 19 to 22 on your own. That talks a little bit more into detail about the liqueurs. But on page 23, let's talk a little bit about beer. For the test, you need to know what ingredients make up beer. Water, malted barley, hops, and the most important ingredient, the yeast. For the test, you also need to know the two different categories of beers that people will be drinking, ales or lagers. You need to know the subcategories of your ales and the subcategories of your lagers. At the top of page 24, we give you a few examples there of your ales. These are like your colors: brown ale, pale ale, amber ale, red ale. IPA has the word ale in it, standing for India Pale Ale. You need to know 3 styles of lagers: American Pale Lager, German Pale Lager, very popular, Bock, Pilsner, and Marzens. These are all great examples of lagers. These are just a few examples. There's a lot more out there than just what you see here. For the test, also, you need to know international beers. Very important that you familiarize yourself with not only the beers that we have here, but beers from all over the world, including Japan, Mexico, Canada, Germany. There's so many beers out there. It's a really fun scene. For your local breweries, you need to know 2 for the test. Also, it's very important that you familiarize yourself with local breweries. Here in San Diego, we average 4 new microbreweries a year. So we have a lot of local breweries in town, and it's very important that you familiarize yourself with all your local breweries and get familiar with the different styles of beers that they have to offer. At the bottom of page 24, this talks about the mixed beer drinks. You don't need to know for the test. However, do not disregard these. These are very popular drinks. These are actually layered beer drinks. The black and tan, snakebite, black and blue, these are very popular. When I say layered beer drinks, for example, the black and tan, I would actually pour this pint glass halfway with the Bass Ale, which is a tan color, and then I would top it off with the Guinness, and this would float right on top of the ale. Now, this is why they call it the black and tan, because it has black from the Guinness or stout beer and tan from the ale. The snakebite, the black and blue, these are also very popular as well. All right, now let's talk a little bit about wine. On page 25, under your reds for the test, you need to know 2 red wine varieties. I recommend you know Merlot and Cabernet tend to be the more popular of the reds. Pinot Noirs, Zinfandels, Shiraz, Malbecs, these are all great examples of red wine varieties. Also for the test, you need to know 2 white wine varieties: Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling. These are very popular whites, normally kept in the refrigerator, of course. Also, you need to know what the 3 V's are. This is the way we talk about wines: the vineyard, the varietal, and the vintage. The book gives you an example there. Kendall Jackson, Chardonnay 2008. Usually it's an exact same order, starting with your vineyard, then Chardonnay, the varietal, the type of grape used, 2008, the year is bottled. And this goes for all wines. Another example could be Robert Mondavi, Malbec 2003. So usually it goes in that exact same order, and this is the way we talked about wines. And if you could say it in a French accent too, it makes it sound a little bit funner, a little cooler. Also for the test, you need to know that red wine is served at room temperature, usually set about 65 degrees it starts. You need to know that white wine is served chilled or in the refrigeration, usually about 42 degrees, and that your champagnes are served ice cold, or what we use to chill the champagne is what we call a cold water bath in a champagne bucket, usually insulated. We'll put 50% ice and 50% water, throw that champagne bottle right in there, and that's how we serve our champagne, ice cold. And some cool interesting facts right there at the bottom of page 25 talking about champagne. It not be considered a champagne unless you're actually using the grapes grown in the region of France. Otherwise, it's just a sparkling wine. So, very important that you know the difference between a sparkling wine and your champagnes, of course. This is going to bring us into mixology, lesson 1 on page 26. Let's start making some drinks. The first drink we're going to start off is with the screwdriver. Now, on mixology, lesson 1 with highballs. This is simply a classification for all these drinks we're going to learn, called the highballs. Reason why they called them highballs is because all these drinks used to come into a highball glass, which stands a little bit taller, about 7 ounces. And that's why they'd call it a highball, because it was a taller glass. However, the highball glass pretty much got traded out for the rocks glass these days. This is actually an 8-ounce rocks glass, so it's only 1 ounce more. And the rocks glass tend to be a little bit more versatile. I can make cocktails on the rocks. I can make all the highball drinks, which we're about to do here in a second. I can do mixed shooters. I can do backs. Remember, we learned the term back, the chasers. Shorts. So the rocks glass tends to be a little bit more versatile, a little bit more durable, stackable. So when we're able to stack glassware, it frees up a little bit more bar space, which benefits the bartender's working space, of course. So for the rocks glass is what we'll be using, the screwdriver. Our first step is to ice up our cocktail glass. And now my next step is to add the alcohol. First, we want to make sure we give them what they pay for. Now you'll notice that the book says 1 shot of vodka. Now that doesn't mean we're going to give them 1 exact liquid ounce. 1 shot equals 1 house pour, which equals 1 1/4 ounce, which is our house pour, or also known as a 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, making sure all the alcohol stays inside the glass. 0 spillage, because spillage is unacceptable. And fill with orange juice. Make sure you cut it off right before you get to the rim of the glass, so we can hand this off to a patron. Cocktail server can put it on their tray without spillage. And once again, we have that Rocky Shore look. The ice liquid levels are right where we want them to be. This is your screwdriver. The next one we're going to learn is this Cape Cod. Now, I've already demonstrated a Cape Cod for you earlier in this video. We'll do it again here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 count of vodka, or 1 1/4 ounce. And we're going to fill with cranberry juice. And this is your Cape Cod, a vodka cranberry. And the next one we're going to learn is the Greyhound. You could think of the Greyhound, starts with the G. G for Greyhound, G for grapefruit juice. 5 count of vodka, or 1 1/4 ounce. And we're going to fill with grapefruit juice. And this is your Greyhound. Now, to make a salty dog, it's simply a salted rim with a Greyhound. To do a salty dog, I'd salt the rim of the glass first and build a Greyhound. And I'd probably serve the salty dog without a straw, because that would defeat the purpose of having a salted rim. Okay, the next drink we're going to learn is the Madras. This will be the first cocktail that we get to use 2 mixers. First step is to ice up my glass. And the Madras calls for vodka, like the rest of these cocktails. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now this is an opportunity for me to use a 2-hand juice pour. Or I can go what I think is 50% orange juice, and then what I think is 50% cranberry juice. Or I can start pouring these at the same time, so I know I'm getting 50-50. 50% orange juice and cranberry. That's a 2-hand juice pour. Anything you can do 2 hands with is going to make you a faster bartender, and it's a proven fact. Time is money behind the bar. And the faster bartender that you are, the more money you're going to make. This is the Madras, vodka, cranberry, and orange juice. The next 2 drinks we're going to learn is the Bay Breeze and the Sea Breeze. Now, a lot of bartenders out there still can't get these 2, figure them out, which one is which. I was actually at a bar not too long ago, and I was hanging out, and somebody ordered the Sea Breeze. And the bartender said, "Come in right up." And then I saw the bartender go to the other bartender, and they're asking each other questions. And then I saw one bartender go in their little cubby hole and bring out their bartending book. And he was like, "Yeah, see, I told you it was pineapple juice or grapefruit juice." So, you know, they didn't know the difference between the Sea Breeze and the Bay Breeze. So I'm gonna teach you an easy way to remember the difference between your Bay Breeze and your Sea Breeze. First step is to ice up our glassware. And both of these cocktails call for vodka. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you notice what I did there was a slide pour. Whenever you're going to do a slide pour, make sure these glasses aren't touching. Now with the Sea Breeze, an easy way to remember this is grapes float in the sea. And the reason why I know this is because I used to go fishing with my grandmother, and she used to pack green grapes in my lunch sack. I'd get bored of fishing, of course, not catching anything. I'd reach for my grapes and feed the seagulls out in the ocean, and I threw my grapes down in the ocean because I saw a school of fish coming, and they just swam around it, didn't even think about eating the grapes. But what I noticed was my grapes were floating in the sea. So for the sea breeze, grapefruit juice, grapes float in the sea. For the bay breeze, if you can remember that pineapples grow by the bay, not only is it going to help you remember the bay breeze, but it's also going to help you remember for other cocktails that you'll learn down the way. So for our sea breeze, grapes float in the sea, grapefruit juice and cranberry, 50% of each. And the bay breeze, pineapples grow by the bay, with cranberry, 50% each. If you can remember that, you'll never forget the difference between your sea breeze and your bay breeze. All right, the next drink we're going to learn is the Presbyterian, also known as a press. Now it could be a vodka press, a gin press, a whiskey press, a tequila press. More importantly, you know what a press is. This happens to be a vodka press, 5-count vodka. And a press is fill with soda water and splash a 7-Up, Sprite, or a lemon lime soda. This will be the first time that you get to use the soda button on the soda gun, which is simply carbonated water. And we're going to leave room for a little splash of 7-Up, Sprite, or lemon lime soda. And what that does is it gives the drinker just that little hint of sugar that they need to enjoy this cocktail. I've noticed that press drinkers too tend to go for the top shelf alcohols because they don't want to muffle up the premium spirit with a lot of sugars and stuff. So you'll notice that the press drinkers tend to pour the premium liquors such as your Grey Gooses and Kettle Ones and stuff like that. That's your press. And the last drink we're going to learn on your highball selection is the Fuzzy Navel. Now for the Fuzzy Navel, this is going to be the first time we don't use vodka. We're actually going to use peach schnapps. Now, the Fuzzy Navel, an easy way to remember this is fuzzy, like a peach fuzz. So we use peach schnapps for 5, just a 5-count there, 1 1/4 ounce, and navel orange juice. This will make you a fuzzy navel. Very popular drink. Note that the peach schnapps is only 15% alcohol by volume. Therefore, it would take you roughly 3 fuzzy navels to do the same damage as 1 screwdriver. Something you need to start keeping track of how much alcohol you're actually serving the individuals, because you can be held responsible for serving an intoxicated individual and them going out and hurting somebody else. So the bartender can hold responsibility too. So it's very important to know that how much alcohol you're giving the individual with every drink.